Oh, there's the school bell. Guess I'm late for class. Well, hello and good evening. I'm K1KC. My name is Chris, and I'll be tonight's moderator for the Yellow River Digital Group, System Fusion and Wires X Net. Welcome to net number 93. The purpose of this net is to provide an outlet for YAC Wires X and System Fusion radio owners to use the digital features of those devices. The net is hosted by the Yard Dogs, and the Yard Dogs is simply a nickname for the Yellow River Digital Group. They were formed in the spring of 2017 for the purpose of advancing knowledge of amateur radio digital methods amongst its members. The Yard Dogs maintain a web presence at yrdg.org and an email reflector at Yellow River Digital Group at groups.io. The Yard Dogs request that no bridges to other digital platforms be connected to this room. That means please do not access this room from DMR, D-Star, YS, FCS, or YCS reflectors. Rather, make your access directly from a Wires X node. The Yard Dogs thank you for your cooperation. All amateurs with System Fusion and Wires X capability are welcome to participate in this net. Volunteers are always welcome. The intent is that this net serve both as a social and technical virtual meeting place. Being that this is a directed net, we ask that you direct all of your communications through the net controller. Please allow the net controller to recognize you before you reply to another station. Tonight's net controller, K1KC. Tonight's assistant net controllers, WC4FM, backed up by W4DL and KJ4GK. The backup room for the Yard Dogs is called State Line 43619, courtesy of Cedartown Joe. Any station that provides public access to the Yard Dogs room via their net their node can request listing on our web page. In that case, we will publish the node frequency and the location, as well as when the node will be connected. Okay, so we'll take check-ins now. Please state your name and your call sign. Advise if you have traffic or not. Traffic is considered to be a question, comment, or a suggestion. So if you'd like to check in, go ahead.
JN4QJ, Frank, no traffic.
K8LIN, Brad in Tequila, Georgia, no traffic. Good evening.
Evening, Chris. VK5 Juliet Papa. Adelaide, South Australia, no traffic.
K9 VYH John, Kane County, Illinois. In and out, no traffic.
W3 BLT, Ben in Norris Lake, no traffic.
VK5 Zulu X-Ray, Matt in Freeling, South Australia, no traffic.
And 4EXO, Tim Cedartown, no traffic.
Okay, recognizing WC4FM, KN4QJ, K8LIN, VK5JP, K9VYH, W3BLT, VK5CX, Cedartown Joe. Law enforcement's missing tonight. Anybody else?
KJ4LY, Charles here in Gainesville.
N4NT, Adam in Bristol, Tennessee.
K4S, Georgia, no traffic.
All right, picking up KJ4LY, N4NT, K4SID. Are there any others? All right, then we'll move right along. Well, tonight's subject is how to handle a band opening in C4FM. It would first make sense to describe what a band opening is before proceeding with how to handle it. So, a band opening describes a propagation condition in which signals can be transmitted and received from further distances than normal. We will say that means much further than normal. Of course, the distance involved will depend completely upon the band in question. If we were speaking of 2 meters, for instance, and our normal range was 50 miles, then we would not consider 70 miles to be a band opening necessarily. However, if the range lengthened to 200 miles, we might consider that to be a band opening. Although there may be some methods of predicting band openings, most of us are not aware when one might occur. How do we know when one might occur? How do we know when one is occurring? When the MUF begins rising, it is time to watch for a band opening. The MUF, of course, is the maximum usable frequency and refers to the maximum frequency which is reliably usable at a particular frequency. This changes over time, maybe a very short period of time. Once again, this is band dependent, so if you're looking for an opening on 10 meters, you should start looking for activity or propagation on lower bands. If the MUF has increased from 20 meters to 17 to 15 to 12 meters, well then, there's some chance the MUF may increase further to 10 meters. So you're looking for increasing activity or propagation on more reliable bands first. To recognize a band opening that is taking place right then and there, you most likely will begin hearing stations from areas that you would not normally hear. Since we are specifically addressing C4FM, we should note that quite often we're not monitoring the airwaves at all, but rather we're monitoring the internet. Chances are that we might not even notice a band opening if this is the case. And why should we care? We've got worldwide communications via the internet. Well, perhaps there is no reason to care, but if you do, we will provide some tips and tools. To begin with, there are plenty of propagation maps, predictors, reverse beacon networks, beacons, DX clusters, and so forth that guide you in finding band openings. The greatest method is to pick up the microphone and start calling. Knowing when and where to call is important. What frequency should I use? What mode should I use? Well, here's some help. We stated that we are interested in C4FM, so the natural frequencies to use are the calling frequencies or watering holes. Just as SSB users, FM users, and CW users and others have specific places to look for each other, so do C4FM users. Now, granted, those places are quite limited, but they do exist. Specifically, for 2 meters, you might try 145.5625 megahertz. For 6 meters, actually, I don't know what the watering hole there is. But for 10 meters, I would try 29.25 megahertz. All right, I'm not declaring that it is legal to use C4FM on 10 meters. I am merely stating that there is known to be activity on that frequency. Before we move on, let me tell you about a band opening predictor that I use. That would be the 3-meter band, otherwise known as the FM broadcast band. If I hear distant stations begin to interfere with local FM broadcast stations, I know there's a pretty good chance that the 2-meter band might be opening up as well. That has proven to be true many times. Obviously, you could use any authorized frequency for your transmissions, but if you're looking to at least establish a contact, start at the watering hole. Then you can move off to another frequency to chat if you wish. Again, since we're talking about C4FM here, we have some interesting differences. First of all, if you're using GPS and the other station is too, then you might immediately know just how distant that other station is. This can be quite satisfying. If you do not have GPS but you have the capability to enter a fixed latitude longitude, then do so. Your entry will work the same as a GPS report. At this point, we should remind ourselves how the different digital C4FM modes work. When using DN, or what some call digital narrow, bandwidth for audio is reduced to 3600 bits per second so that room for forward error correction is made. When using VW, or what many call voice-wide, bandwidth for audio is increased to 7200 bits per second, sacrificing forward error correction. When transmitting data, the radio goes into FR, or data full rate mode. Some may think this only occurs when transmitting a file from an SD card, but that's not true. Your radio goes into full rate mode whenever beaconing in the group monitor mode, which brings us to our next subject, and that is the group monitor mode. A popular way of looking for contacts or for band opening is to use the group monitor mode. Legal or not, you could do so unattended. Your screen will populate with up to 24 receive stations with distance and direction too when lat longs are available. So maybe you're fooling around on another radio while your C4FM radio is beaconing looking for contacts. That's pretty handy. And if you are fooling with another radio, just make sure one radio doesn't overload the front end of the other radio. It's easy to forget the radio beaconing C4FM packets is putting out RF. Which mode, then, should you put your radio into to make contacts? Well, once again, if you're beaconing in the group monitor mode, the radio's going into FR on its own every time it beacons, but it immediately returns to the mode you set. I would suggest starting with DN mode, since your call sign is transmitted over and over, whereas in voice-wide it only gets transmitted once per transmission. Of course, you can experiment, and why not? You might find something interesting. The next interesting situation. In C4FM, the squelch is essentially open all the time, but you do not hear any audio until the signal is given. This probably occurs in the header frame, but in any case, your radio gets the go-ahead to pass audio when a C4FM signal is received properly. Because of this, you will likely see the busy light going on and off, but you will not hear audio necessarily. This may cause your radio not to beacon until it finds a break in the action. So if your beacon in the GM mode, of course, doesn't occur exactly every so many seconds, this could be the reason why. What bands can you expect C4FM to work on? Well, no doubt that C4FM was designed to work at VHF and above. Where does VHF start at? Well, you could probably debate that point, but most likely C4FM was designed to operate on VHF high band and above. All right. What is VHF high band? VHF high band is the 138 to 174 megahertz band. So, 2 meters is a natural for C4FM. Could C4FM work on HF? Well, reportedly so, but not any lower than 80 meters from what I have heard. Now, even though I have questions about whether C4FM is legal on 10 meters, there is no way that I would attempt to use it on any band lower in frequency than 10 meters. I have heard every rationalization in the book, but I have yet to see an FCC clarification saying it is okay. People will come up with any number of justifications, but none of them are official. So take their advice with a grain of salt. It's important to remember that propagation on the lower bands will be much different than at VHF and above. So we cannot expect C4FM to perform the same there as it does where we currently use it. It is also important to remember that C4FM is FM, and we don't see much FM usage down low. In fact, we've been told by the FCC that the high end of 10 meters is the limit. Why anybody would go lower than that, I cannot understand. Some say it is digital. Well, it is until it leaves your radio. Since energy travels in a sinusoidal pattern, it is analog on the airwaves, and it's nearly 10 kilohertz wide. Yes, your emitted signal is an analog representation of a digital signal that gets reconverted to digital by the receiving radio. My suggestion, don't use it below the FM portion of 10 meters at the very lowest. Given that we're talking about band openings, what else would we want to know? Well, for one thing, the audio buffering we're used to dealing with probably doesn't exist in the RF-only world. Audio buffering normally takes place on the hard drive of your WireSex PC, so without that, don't worry about latency. What else? Well, expect a very different experience using C4FM over great distances. That means don't expect C4FM to sound as good on 10 meters as it does through your local repeater. If conditions are excellent, such as during a band opening, well, you might have a pleasant conversation, but chances are that you will have far more dropouts and artifacts when the transmission takes place over long distances. This is because of the simple fact that propagation conditions are quite different on bands lower than 2 meters. Hey, I want to hear some great reports from those bands, and I suppose they're quite possible under the right conditions, but I really don't expect those conditions to exist very often at all. Think of how the technology has developed over the last few decades for getting information through on lower frequencies. They have all gone to narrower bandwidth methods, not 10 kilohertz wide signals. We all know that the narrower the bandwidth, the less the throughput. This is due to symbol rate limitations. If you want to experiment with C4FM on 6 meters or 10 meters, go for it. Let us know what you find. What then do we take away from this talk? Well, to begin with, we're talking about RF, not Internet. There are no band openings on the Internet. I've checked. Perhaps 90% of what we do is Internet-based, so we should remember that there is still an RF component to C4FM, and it can be fun. I have listened for C4FM GM mode signals on 10 meters, and I've had a lot of fun doing that. I also recall having fun experimenting with WC4FM when we talked mobile to mobile many times, learning just what to expect from C4FM versus conventional analog. Maybe one day we can try using Yagis on 2 meters or 440 and just to see how far we can get on C4FM. You know, the ATV guys have switched to digital TV in many cases, and on many occasions I have used high outside antennas to listen for locals. Now I should listen for band openings. You never know when one might occur. K1KC. Okay, so let's go up to the top of the list here, which happens to be Walnut Grove. Come in, please, Frank.
Okay, good evening, Chris. Another great presentation. I texted Mike, KM4VG, if he might want to check in later. But anyway, I did not participate in field day, but I did participate today with the 13 colonies event. And I got 11 out of 13 colonies and worked my tail off to do it. But anyway, propagation's not all that great, but a great presentation. Chris, I do appreciate it. KN4QJ, back to you.
Well, Frank, congratulations on your colonies quest there. On field day, I feel like laying down, so that's what I did. All right, let's go on down to K8LIN, the ghost of Gwinnett County.
Good morning, Chris. Boy, I'll tell you what, Spectrum, Charter, whoever has got a really good band opening tonight. I was picking up stations down under. So, hey, conditions are perfect tonight. Everybody is 599. Anyway, I don't have a whole lot to add. Just trying to stay cool, keep the humidity down, and just kicking back to watch a little TV here. Hope everyone has a good evening and a good 4th of July plans coming up. I'll turn it back to you. 7:30, everyone. K8LIN.
Yeah, isn't it amazing when people using voice are 599? That's awesome. Okay, well, let us go down under VK5JP, K1KC.
Yeah, good evening, Chris and other people listening this evening. Beautiful subject. You always come up with beauties. Well, I'm going to blow your socks off, Chris. We have played with the digital modes on HF and have had some interesting results. Yes, we've worked people on 10 metres. We only stayed in country, but we got to Queensland on 29 560, if I remember rightly. A couple of chappies chatting away up there, and anyway, we gave them a call, and fortunately, one of the chappies had a 991, and so we switched over, and there we were. He was as much as surprised as I was. ZL on 20 metres, that's New Zealand. It wasn't all that great, but it certainly made the contact. We've done it on 40 metres, and we've done it on 80 metres locally. So it does work. We don't have the restrictions that you have, and that in the bandwidth. So it's been interesting. Matt and I have done a few tests as well. So there we go. But yes, it does work. 10 metres was by far the better of them. But there is packet loss along the way, and it can be quite substantial depending on the signal. It's not worth going anywhere if the signal's below 5, 6, 5, 7. Above that, it doesn't work too badly. Anyway, that's my bit. So there we go, and that it is quite possible, and it has worked on the other bands. 80 was very intermittent, but nevertheless we managed to do a bit, even though it was very short range. I'd say it was only a matter of about 70k on 80. Back to you there, Chris. K1KC in the group, VK5JP.
Well, Pete, I based part of my talk there on information you'd given me in the past, and that is some good information there. Yeah, we do have some restrictions here, but we can't get clarification, so nobody knows what's really going on here. You know, you reminded me of the time that I tried 160 meters mobile. Man, I got 3 or 4 blocks.
It depended on how long your wire was that you've towed behind you. No, look, it is incredible, and if the conditions are there, then it's worth a go. Now, Queensland to where I got to, which was up in Townsville, is quite a long hop. It's well over a couple of thousand k. So the propagation that day was absolutely magic, and the results were outstanding. Back to you.
Well, I appreciate those reports there, Pete. Okay, let's go on down to John. John said he was in and out, but we'll give him a shot anyway. K9VYH, K1KC. All right, I guess John's got other duties to attend to there. W3BLZ.
W3BLT. Good evening to everybody on the net. I'm going to go out on a limb, and this is a real tiny, skinny, long limb, and I'm going to be out on the edge of it. My guess is that if the FCC were to come down with a ruling, regardless of whether you try to say it's frequency modulation, they would still look at it as being a digital transmission, and they would look at the symbol rates that are used in that transmission, and I think that's probably where you would run afoul, trying to use the lower HF bands. Just a thought, but that's all I got right now. Back to you, Chris.
Well, Ben, I would say that's very likely to be the case because for over 7 years, the league has been petitioning the FCC to abandon the symbol rate clause and go to a bandwidth directed ruling, and that has not happened. The symbol rate for C4FM is 4,800 bits per second, or 4,800 symbols per second, and that's quite wide and quite a bit. So I would agree with you there. All right, appreciate those comments. Let's go on down to Matt. If you're there, Matt, VK5ZX K1KC.
Yeah, good evening, Chris, and everybody in the room tonight. I should be able to get in pretty well tonight, Chris, here at home at the moment, so using the FT2 and the PC in direct mode here, so we should be pretty right. Yeah, C4FM, yeah, I've used it there on, from 70 centimetres right down in the HF. Like Pete said, yeah, it works okay. Signal to noise ratio does affect it a bit, the lower in frequency that you go. So, but yeah, 10 metres works pretty well on 10 metres when the band conditions are there. 6 metres, yep, I've used it on 6 metres, that works okay with a vertical antenna. Yeah, I have tried it right down 40 metres, 80 metres. I reckon I've done a couple of tests with Pete there a couple of times. I've also tried another mode here that they've been playing around with called 3DV, is another digital format. Designed on HF. Yeah, that works okay. But yeah, once again, signal to noise ratio is another bit of a drama. But if the band conditions are working okay and there's not too much atmospheric noise on HF, 80 metres and 40, it seems to work okay. So here in the winter time here in Australia it works okay. But in the summertime it's not so great when the tropics are going off with all the storm activity up there. But yeah, but what you're saying there, Chris, is pretty much right. I'm no expert at it, but yeah, for bits and pieces I've been playing around with it, it seems to work quite well. So there we go. I had a bit of a mess around on the weekend there. I was out portable there and I was playing around on 160 metres in the car and made a couple of contacts on 160 metres with a screwdriver antenna. So I thought that was pretty good with only about 50 watts. Managed to get into New South Wales and I managed to get into Victoria. No dramas. Once it got dark here, just out portable using not a lot of power on a screwdriver mobile antenna, 9350 Codan antenna with a 9-foot stainless steel whip on the top, and it seems to work quite well. So like you say, when the band conditions are there and you've got a nice little opening there, the band will do quite marvellous things depending on where you want to talk to, that's for sure. So, yeah, but certainly a good presentation, Chris, and, yeah, not a bad subject to be talking about. All right, throw it back to you, and hopefully everyone's travelling okay over there in the States, and not let that virus knock you guys around too much. Back to you, Chris, K1KC with the group, VK5ZX, over.
Well, you know, Matt, I've tried a couple of different screwdriver antennas, and I guess 8.5 foot whip is about the longest I've ever had on there. But I've got a antenna called a Park and Talk, and basically it is a vertical that collapses, so you can carry it easily. And I thought if I ever put a screwdriver antenna back on there, I could stick that thing out and extend it out to 28 feet, and then I could use that screwdriver to run it up and down and maybe get a little bit better signal out. But I haven't ever done that, so we'll see one of these days. All right, appreciate the comments there, Matt, and let's go down to Cedartown Joe, N4EXO.
Yes, N4EXO, Tim Cedartown, Georgia. Well, yeah, I've listened on the 29 250, I think it is, but I haven't heard any C4FM there yet, and I'm just not willing to transmit there until I see something definite, so I'm just kind of like to see something definite, but I tend to agree. I don't think it's going to be the way we'd like it to be as far as 10 meter C4FM goes, but I do remember playing around with FM repeaters and back in the early 90s with a pickup truck and a 10 meter whip and 757 GX Yaesu working 10 meter repeaters in the Caribbean and stuff like that while I was driving back and forth on I-20, and that was a lot of fun, but that's about the only mobile HF I've done at all, so I haven't done that much. But that's about it from here. You know, just still playing around with solar today, and getting sunburned and having fun with that. But that's about it. K1KC and 40XO.
Well, the band openings have everything to do with it, because back in the early 90s when the bands were really hot, you could probably have an effective radiated power of 2 watts and made intercontinental contacts. And now we don't have those conditions, so we'll have to wait or have better antennas. One of the two. All right. KJ4LY, K1KC.
K1KC in the group, and KJ4LY. Good evening, Chris. Just been listening in. Another good subject there for sure. Been working on that 10 meter deal at 29 250 and made 2 contacts, both of them around 700 to 800 miles, most to the northeast. So get taken with that a little bit. And band conditions been kind of bad today and yesterday, so I've been listening. But other than that, we'll see. Yeah, we do need to get the FCC to do some clarifications there for sure, but I don't know. It just looks like they've been silent for quite some time. Back to you, K1KC, KJ4LY.
Well, you know, the FCC's been busy selling spectrum, so we got more important things to do. Well, we are protected now, N4NT. Go ahead, sir.
Well, good evening, everybody. Yeah, real good subject tonight. I actually it's been a long time since I've been able to do a YouTube for this net, and so I thought I got home in time tonight, and I thought, well, I'm going to do that, and so picked a good subject to do that with, and kind of lucky that it's not a 2 or 3 part one, because next week I'll be out of town, so I plan on taking my FT3 with me and doing that setup, but I won't be near my PC to be able to do anything with YouTube, so I picked a good night for that as well, but definitely an interesting subject. There was I know when I first got into C4FM radios, you know, first thing I got was the FT70 HT, tried that out, connected to a few nodes, and that sort of thing, and started learning a little bit about it. And then my next radio was a FT991 because I was rebuilding my station. I wanted an HF radio, and the fact that that one was all band and had C4FM was really appealing. I had a bright idea at one time of trying to call a C4FM net on 6 meters, which I'm sure would be restricted here locally. But one of the things that sort of dawned on me after I initiated the idea and talked to a few people locally about it was the limitation on how many rigs actually would do that. So as far as I know, close to me and Dallas could have probably talked to each other, and that would have been about the extent of it. But anyway, you know, just learning as I go, and you guys have been a big help for that. I'll give a cheap plug from my net on Tuesday nights at 9:30 Eastern time, room 61243. We call it the Tri-Cities Mountain Empire Fusion Net because of the region that we emanate from. But everyone's welcome, and be glad to have you. We usually feature a topic of some sort that we let everybody comment on, and then I've even added a little extra at the after the first round of check-ins where we do a short spiel about one of the towns in our area. So it's been a couple weeks on that. But let me reset real quick. You were talking about the propagation of 10 meter FM and pretty much the bands in general in the early 90s when I was getting into the hobby. My first hobbies were CB radios and scanners before I got into amateur radio, and the scanners is what helped lead me to amateur radio, listening to local repeaters. But I could also program, I think the frequency was 29.660 into my scanner, connected to my base antenna for my CB, and actually listened to 10 meter repeaters, and picked up quite a few during that era in the early 90s. So that helped spark some interest for me in the hobby. But and Chris, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it back to you and sign, but I'll be listening. Can you remind me what that 10 meter calling frequency is for C4FM? Asking for a friend. Anyway, I hope everybody has a good night, and back to you, Chris. This is N4NT.
Adam, the frequency that I mentioned for 10 meters was 29.25, and there has been some activity there. There may be some other frequencies that our folks are using, but I can say that I have seen a few stations there when the band is open. And my experience is about the same as Charles. I was getting stations about 900 miles away up to the northeast. However, earlier in the day, I was here in Texas. So you just have to see what happens when you get on there. Does that answer your question there?
Yeah, sure does. I appreciate it. I'll definitely check that out. It's N4NT.
All right, let's go on down to Sid, who's been standing by patiently, K4SID.
Well, good evening, Chris, and everybody on the net. And yeah, it's a real interesting topic. And you know, it just makes me wonder. Before I got into C4FM, I did D-Star, and I know that they got a group that does D-Star on all of the HF bands that don't really understand how they can do that, and we can't. It was unadvisable because there's no clarification. But that's just an interesting comment there. And if anybody has a bottle rocket, we can tie a FT2 to it, put it in group monitor mode, shoot it off on the 4th of July, and see how many people can contact it when it gets up there before it explodes. We can then check the screen and see if there's anything left to win. With that, that's about it, Chris. That's all I got for tonight. K1KC and the net from K4SFE. Good evening to everybody.
Well, Sid, you should know that bow fangs are reserved for explosions. and target practice. Not good radios. The difference between the folks that have authorized themselves to operate on certain modes, on certain bands, and the folks that think that maybe the rules are a good thing to follow, well, you know, you can call it what you want and do what you want. I tend to follow the rules, and if there's a question, you know, I err on the side of caution there. Well, appreciate the comments there, Sid, and that's the bottom of the list except for WC4FM, so let's go to him.
Hey, good evening, everybody. WC4FM. Good topic tonight. Taking off on the 10 meters subject. I think one day there'll be some more guidance from the FCC on that. I'm sure it'll come. It's just going to take a while. And yeah, I had fun. Well, I hooked up on my node radio on what was it, 29.3 and 29.6 on FM, and played with it a little bit. It worked good. I'm gonna do that again one day. And I think I invited everybody to see if they could hit the node and talk analog on it. But it all went pretty good when I tried that out, the experiment. I know Tim he said his HRI 200 in analog, and we talked back and forth there just to try it out. It did work. But anyway, everybody's sounding good tonight on the radio, and look forward to hearing y'all again next week. And everybody have a safe week and have a happy 4th of July. Bang, bang, bang. 73s to everybody. This is WC4FM, back to net.
All right, this is K1KC for the Yellow River Digital Group, System Fusion Wireless X Net. Are there any other stations who'd like to check in tonight?
Yes, sir, Net Control. This is Kilo Echo 4, Whiskey Mike Lima. Kilo Echo 4, Whiskey Mike Lima. My name is Bradley, and I'm located in Bristol, Virginia.
K4WML, go right ahead.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much for letting me in. Like I said, my name is Bradley, and I'm in Bristol, Virginia, and I just realized the net was on. I hurriedly checked in. I don't know the topic of discussion. I'm sorry about that. What is your topic?
Well, the title was How to Handle a Band Opening on C4FM.
Oh, wow. I'm not sure. I've never really thought about that. I'm assuming it'd be some sort of tropospheric ducting or something like that. And I guess personally I would approach it the way I would do if it were analog, I guess. That's about all I have. I hope you all are having a great week. Hope you have a great 4th of July and stay safe and healthy. And I'll turn it back to you, Net Control. Kilo Echo 4, Whiskey Mike, Lima, Bristol, 73.
All right, Bradley. Thanks for checking in tonight. Yeah, it's kind of my job to eat a lot of chocolate before I go to bed and dream these crazy subjects up. So that's the bottom of the list. Anybody else wishing to check in, come now.
Net Control, November 8th, Foxtrot, Juliet, Charlie, Frankie, West Virginia, over.
Well, Frankie, go right ahead.
Well, thank you, Chris, for taking my call. This is N8FJC. I live right almost in the center of West Virginia in a little town called Buchanan. Very interesting listening to you. I haven't been a ham all that long, but I just got introduced to C4FM within the last year and ended up getting a radio with digital on it. Before that, I just had analog on 2 meter and 440. And I'm not a technician, so what goes on inside the radio, I don't know a whole lot about. But it's very interesting for an old man like me. I'm up in my years. I'm retired, 90 years old, and just sitting back and waiting for things to happen. But I do enjoy my ham radio, Chris. I enjoy your presentations. I only got in on the tail end of it tonight because I had some other things to do. But that's it from Central West Virginia. Thanks again for taking my call, and I hope everyone has a good holiday. And be safe. N8FJC.
Well, Frankie, thanks for checking in, and I'm glad you're enjoying C4FM. We certainly do. Kind of got into it pretty heavy, and got a lot of friends here on C4FM, so it's been a great ride over here. Anyway, let's see if there's anybody else who wants to check in. This is K1KC for the Yard Dogs. Anybody else? All right, well, that concludes tonight's Yellow River Digital Group System Fusion Wires X Net. I would like to thank each and every participant for joining in and helping making this net a success. Please pass the word around to other System Fusion Wires X owners about the net. Direct them to yrgg.org or Yellow River Digital Group at groups.io. So, 73 and good night from K1KC.